Thank you. Welcome to the first coalition meeting of 2024. Welcome. Happy New Year to you all. We're really happy you're here. So, yeah, apologies for interrupting the village people. Yeah, so I'm seeing lots of wonderful introductions, but I don't see anybody taking a good guess at what all these songs have in common and how it might be connected to the coalition. So I'm going to just give it another minute if somebody wants to be brave and throw their answer into their arena.
I mean, if you have to, you can consult Google,
Yes,
but that would be cheating.
that would be cheating. While maybe folks are thinking about whether they're going to like, oh, Mario is very, very hot and warm with their answer. While we are getting going here, I just want to remind folks that we love seeing faces, we love seeing names, pronouns. You will be included in the recording if you come off mute, but otherwise, we just get to see your lovely face this morning. We also understand a lot of people may not choose to do that, and that's okay too. We are very good at this point checking the chat and capturing everything that comes in through the chat, be it a question or kind of a comment for the good of the order. There's also closed captioning, which I think someone has already enabled, but you can get down there and you can do closed captioning if that is helpful for you. We have a really great agenda today. So all of them are bangers. I love it. Laura, wonderful. You're getting lots of good responses there. All right, Rachel. It is the coalition's 45th anniversary this year. And that's a mixed bag for us, right? Like we've been around, we've been doing good work, we've made deep and wonderful partnerships in this community and made improvements. And it's incredibly disheartening to know that we've had to have a coalition on homelessness for 45 years. So we hold that tension close to our hearts. It drives the good work that we do and how we continue to reevaluate and reassess the needs of our colleagues, the needs of our neighbors, the needs of the general community as a whole. So I really appreciate you all being here with us today. We are going to dive into a lot of really good information that's going to be really useful for service providers. We've got good legislative conversation that we're going to have. We've got some wonderful information sharing from Housing Authority. So all that said, let's just go ahead and like jump on in. Let's get to the next slide. So you can see we're going to really talk about why the coalition, along with three folks living unsheltered in Burien, chose to file litigation against a really bad policy that was enacted in Burien. Where, as I said, we're going to talk about Seattle Housing Authority and housing choice vouchers, the DSHS Mobile Community Service Office, which is a fantastic resource that we just want to really get the word out. And then we're going to talk Washington state legislation. We're going to get to take some action, do that collective advocacy that we are so good at. And then we'll talk a lot about what we have coming up for you all this year. Go ahead and go to the next slide there. Well, I would love to invite someone to read our mission, vision, and values. We love to start our meetings off this way in community. So this is a longstanding practice of the coalition. So I would invite anybody to join in with us on that.
I'm happy to do it. Just read the mission, vision, and value statement.
Yes, thank you, Mario.
You're welcome. We mobilize our community to challenge systemic causes of homelessness and advocate for housing justice. The vision, a region that acts on a shared sense of responsibility to ensure that everyone has a home. And then our values are equity, justice, and collective action.
Thank you, Mario. Appreciate that. We are, one thing I just want to preview for you all before we jump into our full agenda. The coalition has long done a member survey about every 2 years with a lovely and long interruption due to COVID. So we are bringing that back. We are working on a draft of that survey as we speak. We're hoping to release it sometime in February. And this is really a chance for us to check in with our community, with our members, with the folks that we are working with and supporting to make sure that we're aligned with what's happening on the ground and what you all are doing, the work you're doing, how to meet the needs in terms of you being able to do your job better and understanding, any system issues or gaps that are happening on the ground so that we can align our work in step with what you all are experiencing and help you do your jobs a little bit better. So just a little flag for that coming down the pike. On that note, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Allison to kick us off with some local advocacy.
Thank you, Jody. Good morning, everyone. Allison Eisinger. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the director of the Coalition on Homelessness. Welcome to all of you. A special welcome to folks who might be joining this membership meeting for the first time. And thank you, Mario, for reading our mission, vision, and values. The Coalition on Homelessness at 45 years old is necessarily different than we were in 1979. And also we are grounded in the same principles and motivated by a desire to not have to exist that motivated the folks who came before us. This is a pretty unusual space. We convene every month together. These are public meetings. Everyone is welcome. And we like to say sometimes we're the coalition of the willing. So if you are here today, thank you. If you want to think of someone whom you work with, someone who has personal experience of homelessness, lived experience of other kinds, to invite to our next meeting, just remember, we meet every third Thursday from 9 to 10:30 a.m. And we are really, we are here to work with and to serve the folks who are experiencing homelessness firsthand and doing the work in the field. And our advocacy is grounded in that as well. So many of you have heard, and I think I will ask my colleagues, this is something we forgot to put in our agenda, but if somebody can just drop the Seattle Times article when we filed the lawsuit the first week of this year into the chat for people who might not have seen it. We're only 18 days into the year, but it's already been busy. We filed a lawsuit together with 3 individuals who are currently without homes, who live in Burien. And we filed it represented by the excellent pro bono attorneys at the Northwest Justice Project. When you file a lawsuit, you file it against the institutional entity that is responsible. And in this case, that is the city of Burien. One of the things that we really have been saying to folks and wanting to remind you all in a time when there's great division all around us in all of our neighborhoods and communities and really across this country and in the world. This is not because Burien is a bad place. In fact, what we've been saying is that Burien is better than a ban. But a banishment ordinance was passed by the Burien City Council by a 4-3 vote. And that law effectively makes it impossible for people without homes to live in Burien. It's both a daytime and a nighttime ban. It is cruel. It is, in our opinion, unconstitutional. And we want to just use this opportunity to let you all know, in case you had not seen the news, what is going on. Lots of questions have come our way about what's next. Well, we're still within the 30-day window within which the city of Burien has to respond to the lawsuit. And so we will have to keep you up to date as things develop. We're prepared for the fact that lawsuits can sometimes take a long time. Our principles are very clear and very firm. We are in good contact with the individuals who are our co-plaintiffs. And if you live or work in Burien or in another community where you see the law being used in a cruel and unjust way against people who don't have homes, we need to hear about it from you. We've spent quite a lot of time in Burien. Jody lives in Burien. We've got strong community partners and connections in that city. And we know that some of you work in organizations that are doing excellent work, trying to support people on the ground in Burien and other parts of our community. So we're not here using the law in a naive way, I would like to just note. We understand, even if we are successful, which we certainly hope to be, overturning this unjust law doesn't add housing. But we're bringing this lawsuit because when you have the kinds of mission, vision, and values that Mario read at the top of the meeting, there are times when you have to use every tool to stand up against things that are wrong and counter to advancing our mission and vision and living our values. And we continue to do all our work alongside you to ensure that people's basic needs are met and that we are not depriving people of housing, which is a human right, and not depriving communities of focusing their resources on what's effective and what works. We know that banishing people doesn't change their homelessness, their poverty, their disability, or their need to be part of a community. So we will be really glad to keep you all posted. I want to just note that there is another legal matter that has gotten a lot of press recently, and that is that the Grants Pass case from Grants Pass, Oregon, which is related to the Martin versus Boise decision that came down a number of years ago, has now been taken up by the United States Supreme Court. And the US Supreme Court is going to be reviewing that case. Unless you've been under a rock, I think you probably know what I'm about to tell you, which is that that's not likely to go well. We are in conversation with a number of partner and member organizations and with a skilled and experienced attorney, as well as with other advocates across the country about filing an amicus brief. That means a friend of the court brief that would be presented to the US Supreme Court to give them additional information when they make their decision. This is coming up pretty quickly, so we will keep you posted about that as well. And then the last thing is we have some very, very important opportunities for advocacy in Kenmore. So if you are a Kenmore resident or you know a Kenmore resident, I'm going to put into the chat a little bit of information. Oh, thank you so much. Hallie beat me to it. Wonderful. That's a Google website that that we helped to create with information about a very important vote happening at the Kenmore City Council tonight. Please, please spread the word to your folks in Kenmore. The short version, and there's more information at that site, is that there are 100 homes, permanent supportive housing, in a building that Plymouth Housing has been working on for quite some time, at the invitation of the city of Kenmore, and that entire project is now at risk. And there's a very important vote tonight at 7 p.m. at the Kenmore City Council, and we're trying to do our part to support the residents there who say, yes, we can have housing and we can bring our neighbors inside into stable homes right here in our lovely suburban community. So put any questions or comments you might have in the chat, but we've got a wonderful lineup, as Jody said. And I'm going to turn things back to Tim to welcome our guests from the Seattle Housing Authority to talk about some changes to the Housing Choice Vouchers program. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you so much, Allison. I want to preface our next presentations just by the reminder that these meetings are for so many purposes. It's amazing to see these meetings be a useful space to talk about, you know, lawsuits, unfortunately, that arise in the pursuit of ensuring that people experiencing homelessness have basic rights to exist, And also we're a really valuable space to talk about resources that can allow people to reach their needs. We are here for all kinds of purposes. So in that spirit, I want to pass it over to Danny Fitz over at Seattle Housing Authority to talk about some updates to housing choice vouchers offered through the Seattle Housing Authority to low-income folks who are seeking placement within a public housing space. This affects a lot of people, so we definitely want our case managers and housing providers to know particularly that this is an option. Take it away, Danny. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So my name is Danny Fitz. I'm the Deputy Director of the Housing Choice Voucher Program for the Seattle Housing Authority. I use she, they pronouns, and I've been with the Seattle Housing Authority for about 7.5 or 8 years. I am here to talk to you a little bit about how our voucher list is opening. It's going to be a mix of, here's how the voucher list works, as well as hopefully some really practical information for you all to be able to assist folks to get on our voucher list and navigate them through the process of hopefully getting a voucher. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Was that successful?
Looks good, Danny.
Okay, thank you. So unfortunately, I am here today instead of my colleague Tysonia McLean, who usually gives this presentation, but I will do my best in her absence. So let me start with what is the Housing Choice Voucher Program for those of you who might not be as familiar. The vouchers are rental assistance or a subsidy that we provide for folks with low incomes to rent from landlords, private landlords, but also landlords who provide some affordable housing in the Seattle rental market. What we're going to talk about today is the process for folks to be able to get a voucher, how they get on our voucher list. What we're not going to talk about today is public housing. So we have separate waiting lists for our public housing. Seattle Housing Authority owns something like 8,000 units across the city of Seattle. And there are different wait lists for those. And this conversation has no impact on those waiting lists. So really we're talking about today the subsidy that we provide for folks to rent on the private market. So for those of you who are not familiar, we have had a waiting list in the past. The last time we opened our waiting list was in February of 2017. We opened our waiting list for 3 weeks to allow people to register, and then we closed it at the end of February. In that 3-week period, about 22,000 households registered interest in a voucher. We then went through a lottery process, which is pretty common for housing authorities to do. We selected randomly 4,200 households that would make up our waiting list. We randomly ordered them 1 through 4,200. And as of November of last year, we selected the last family off that wait list. So now that we don't have a wait list, we are opening up new opportunities to get a voucher. And this was a chance for us to rethink sort of how this process works. And we want to share with you how it's going to work going forward. So the way it's worked in the past is something you all know and love. It looks just like a line. We all know how to stand in line. The first person usually gets served first, and then the second person gets served second, and so on and so forth. So the new process is going to look a little bit different. So yesterday, actually, our voucher list opened officially. Folks can actually get on our list as of now. We will not close this list for the foreseeable future. So there's no longer a 3-week period where folks have to rush to get on their list. If folks next month start to experience some instability in their housing, they'll still be able to get on our voucher list. We'll always be accepting applications. The other change is we'll be selecting randomly from the list. So folks who get on first won't necessarily have an advantage, and we'll talk a little bit about that too, what the random selection means. But first, a picture. Here's what this looks like. Rather than a line, it's more of a group of people, a pool of people, if you will, who are being selected randomly for a voucher. So The big differences are it's more like an applicant pool rather than a place in line. For those of you who have worked with us in the past, folks had a number and they could, you know, they knew they were number 50 in our line, and that will no longer be the case. It also means that the wait for a voucher could be very long, or it could be very short because we'll be drawing folks completely randomly out of the pool. And as we all know, vouchers are a limited resource. There aren't enough vouchers for everyone who needs one. So there will be folks who are in our voucher pool who will likely never get a voucher. Now, why is this a good thing though? We don't plan to close this voucher list. It will always be a resource for you all. And that's why I'm going to show you how you can get folks on the list. People can join as their life circumstances change. And it'll allow us to be able to draw off this list whenever we have vouchers available. So it should be hopefully a more responsive way of when we get new resources, if those ever come to us, to be able to hand out those vouchers almost immediately because folks are already waiting for them. And it also means that so long as somebody is on our voucher list, they will always have an opportunity to get a voucher. Whereas before, when we held a lottery and selected a number of people, those 18,000 people never had a chance to get a voucher. So in this way, anyone who gets on our list will have a chance at a voucher. Now, here's the practical bits. How do you get a voucher? How do you get on our list? Most of this, well, basically all of this is done online, which is also a difference from how we've done it in the past. You can go to our website, seattlehousing.org, and I'll show you which buttons to click specifically, but folks will need to register for an account with an email address, and they can put themselves directly on the voucher list themselves. So this is mostly self-serve. We do understand that not everyone can navigate the internet, not everyone has access to the internet, so we're also providing in-person assistance for folks to come into our office, which is downtown. And we are also going out into the community to help folks sign up, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. We also have a direct phone number and an email address just for folks who are trying to get on our voucher list so that we can help walk them through the process if they need a little bit more assistance. And for those who don't want to use the internet or can't, we will give them a paper application if they come into our office. So here's what our website looks like. We have a couple of links here to this thing called our SHA portal, and this is how folks will register and get on our voucher list. You can click either of those buttons here, and it'll bring you to some instructions about sort of what's going on with this portal thing, and how to log in if you're already registered. For folks that are trying to get on our voucher list, that would be an applicant login. So you'd like to put in an application for a voucher, log in as an applicant. And it should walk you through the process from there. So the other important thing for folks to know once they're on our list is that they will need to use a system called Save My Spot in order to remain on the list, to let us know, hey, I'm still interested in a voucher. They'll need to call this phone number once a month. If they don't call us over the course of an entire year, they'll be removed from our voucher list. You know, it's important to remember in this case that folks can always register for our voucher list and they'll always have the same opportunity of getting drawn. So the hope here is that this won't have a huge impact on folks who may not have access to a phone for a given period of time. So for folks who need to register, you'll click on this little button here, and we'll walk you through a process of registering. You'll need an email address to do so, which is, I know, a barrier for some, so we do have paper applications available if needed. Wow, that's it. So I am available to answer a few questions. Now, you all are fortunate enough to get to see us the day after our voucher list has opened, so I can share that in the first 24 hours, 4,700 people have registered themselves for our voucher list. So we are anticipating a number of folks. If it's anything like 6 years ago, I would expect 20,000 people on our voucher list within a month. So We do hope that all of you as practitioners are able to help us be sure that folks who need it can get on our list. The one other thing I'll mention here is that we've been going out into the community to provide this information to also help folks sign up and register, because the process can be a little bit confusing. I'm going to drop my contact information in the chat here. And if you'd like us to come to you, please email me and we can set up a time for us to come out to you, either give you this presentation to help caseworkers, understand the system, or to help folks sign up directly. I think I may have a little bit of time to answer questions if there are any.
Thank you, Danny. Yeah, we've got a couple coming in through the chat here. So the first one is the number that you provided known to 211, where a lot of folks get referred.
I'm sorry, what was that question?
The number to call, is that posted at the 211 site? Just a lot of folks get referred to 211 as a resource.
I'm not certain, but I can be sure that it is. That's a good suggestion.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Will applicants get an email reminding them to save their spot?
So we do plan to do a couple of reminders early in the process. And this is new for voucher list folks, so we don't intend to just kind of purge everyone as quickly as possible. What we do want to be sure of is that our people on the voucher list are interested in having a voucher. We do know that some of these voucher lists can get really, really large, which means that it takes us a lot of time to find the folks that actually will be responsive to needing a voucher, which isn't what we want. So long story short, we plan to send out a few reminders in the beginning, and probably not, into the future. And we know from our public housing program that folks will remember to save my spot every month.
Okay. Next question. How often will you pull random names and how many will you pull at a time?
So that will all depend on how many vouchers we have available. This year, we plan to do quite a number of draws, and it also will depend on how successful folks are at leasing up. So I think our goal this year is to lease up about 500 households, and we should do draws from the list monthly. So depending on how many vouchers we have left after that, we may need to reduce the number of draws we do, and et cetera. Great.
And David, it looks like you have a question. You are welcome to come off chat, or you might have thrown it in the, come off mute, or you may have thrown it into the chat. So we've got another question saying this may have already been mentioned, but what was the deciding factor in changing this process?
Yeah, we went through a process with our leadership team to kind of evaluate, well, one, like how successful was our last waiting list? I mentioned we had 4,200 households on it, and it took us almost 7 years to draw through it. And we didn't feel like that was necessarily ideal. We don't want folks waiting 7 years if they know they're for sure going to get a voucher. And we also felt like we wanted to be a bit more responsive to the needs in the community. So for folks in February of 2017 who needed a voucher, that was the kind of snapshot in time that we were working from. And we also know that basically everyone who responds and submits an application when they're drawn is eligible for a voucher. So meaning, and to be eligible, you have to be under 30% of median income or experiencing homelessness. And so we know that folks who are applying for a voucher really need one. And we didn't want to limit that to a short time, snapshot in time, because we know folks' circumstances change. And it allows us to be a little bit more responsive to the needs in Seattle as well. So there were lots of other reasons we felt like this was a bit more equitable as well, so that folks who may have more resources and apply earlier don't necessarily get an advantage in the long run.
Thank you. And how long will someone stay on the list if they don't respond when a voucher becomes available?
Yeah, so we make an attempt to, when somebody's drawn from the list, we'll make an attempt for them to fill out a full application, verify their income and eligibility for the program. We will usually give them 30 days with some extensions to respond. So up to 60 days, basically, and then we'll remove them from the voucher list. There are opportunities to appeal that to get back. But usually 30 days is kind of the limit if we don't hear anything. If we hear something, but we have incomplete information, we'll work with folks over time to be sure that we can complete that application.
Great. And how many vouchers do you expect from HUD in 2024? And do you know what the current number, what is 30% medium income in Seattle?
Sure.
For eligibility.
Great questions. So HUD funds us for about 10,000 vouchers, give or take. They don't typically give us new vouchers. That's not a thing that has been done in a very long time. We do get some funding for special purpose vouchers. So these are vouchers for family unification, foster youth to independence. And we do have a number of those vouchers available now, as well as mainstream vouchers for families that have a disability. And we will sometimes get additional vouchers for those, but this is for, folks who are just meeting our basic eligibility requirements. They don't need to have any of those special criteria. As for median income, so the way that our preferences work is essentially what I'm talking about, is that we have a preference within Seattle for folks who make under 30% of median income, which is defined by HUD and it's in the Seattle Bellevue metropolitan area. I think usually to find it, I just Google HUD income limits. So they update that once a year. We're always using the most current income limits, depending on when you're drawn. And if we get through the entire voucher list, we will start drawing folks up to 50% of median income after that. You can also, if you are homeless or have experienced homelessness in the last year, that will give you a preference to be receiving a voucher earlier.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Allison, I'm not seeing any more questions or comments in the chat, and I'm not seeing any hands. So if you want to talk about advocating for more HUD funding, take it away. Yeah,
thank you so much. And thank you, Danny, for explaining this so clearly and giving the context for it. There is no ideal system for doling out a totally inadequate resource like access to affordable housing. So we understand that SHA and all housing authorities are constrained by the federal funding that is available. And we all feel that and experience it every day. So the great opportunity is before us. January 25th is a National Day of Action to advocate for increased funding for HUD for a wide range of affordable housing needs. It is going to be really important that we make as much progress as we can this year, because as a somewhat scary reminder, this is a presidential election year. So we have, I will put a link in the chat, and we didn't focus on this because we have so much going on the state level right now, but maybe we'll see if we have time in the advocacy section coming up a little bit later in this meeting to flesh this out. And in the meantime, I'm going to put the link for you to speak up and use your voices for more HUD funding in the chat. And thank you again, Danny. This was really a very clear and helpful presentation, even though it is still a complex and lengthy process that we wish were much more effective at meeting our housing needs.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Registering for our voucher list is super easy, and we can do it online. So we hope to get as many people at least a shot at it, even though we know there's not enough for everyone.
Thank you so much for being here. I am going to hand it back off to Tim for some super fantastic information sharing from DSHS. So Tim, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you so much, Danny, for being here. And like Allison said, sharing some concise and helpful information. I want to pivot a little bit to another, as opposed to an updated resource, a newer resource in King County. Well, there's two things that we're going to share from DSHS, actually. We're going to share a new resource talking about their new mobile CSO program, in which they bring their mobile CSO with some services of a community services office to you. But first, we're going to hear from Mario Paduano with DSHS to talk a little about some updates to, I believe, a TANF program for families accessing temporary food assistance. And we're going to hear how many families and which families are affected by that in Washington. Thanks so much for being with us, Mario.
Well, thank you for having me. Unfortunately, I don't have a PowerPoint for you today, but what I am happy to do is collect some links for everybody and some information, and then I'll share it with Tim, and then it can get distributed to you all in case you have any questions. And then you can always reach out to me at any time. I'm currently the Deputy Community Service Office Administrator at the White Center office, and I'm also the permanent financial coordinator for this area. And so I've got a lot of kind of tentacles and a lot of different pots right now. So, but I think the main thing I want you to take away with is, should your organization like a presentation or benefit from a presentation about the Community Services Division, the programs we offer, just like a general overview, or let's say you wanted a more specific, specialized overview. For instance, sponsor deeming is always popular vis-a-vis the immigrant populations that we serve. There could be anything that you might want to learn about or you think would benefit your organization. Contact me. I will set you up with someone who will do that presentation, or I will do it if I'm available. And we're always happy to help, because what I've discovered is the more that we can share information and the more we can collaborate to the benefit of our shared clientele, the better they are, the better we are. It saves them time, it saves you time, it saves us time. If I get you information that you can then share with someone, that then saves them, you know, an hour or two on hold, or saves them from having to take the bus or another bus into the office to learn that, I mean, it's a win-win all around. So collaboration is something that I'm, you know, fairly keen on and really try to put in the forefront. So please feel free to contact me for anything. And if I'm not the person to contact, I am happy to get you in touch with the person that can. So as Tim mentioned, I was going to talk about kind of two new programs. They're not really new per se, but they are some changes that happened. And I do believe that they are going to benefit our shared clients in a number of ways. And so it's a little bit different than the TANF program, and it's a little wonky, so bear with me, but I think you'll kind of understand the kind of change I'm talking about. So recently, we introduced a program called Transitional Cash Assistance, and it is specifically for our basic food households that all of a sudden become ineligible for food because they had an increase in income, or let's say they just had a change in their circumstances and they no longer want to receive food benefits. And the reason this kind of came into effect is, you all have heard of probably the food cliff. A household, let's say you got a household of 5, all of a sudden one of the parents gets a job, and because of the income, they're no longer eligible for food benefits, and their food benefits just stop. Meanwhile, that household hasn't gotten maybe it's just gotten 1 or 2 paychecks yet. They're paying off some old bills. And now what do they do for food? Because their benefits just stopped. So this is how this program kicks in. If a household, you have to have a child in the household that's either under 18 or under 19 and in school. If a household is suddenly ineligible for food benefits due to an increase in income, or again, they decide they don't need benefits anymore, we will issue them what's called transitional cash assistance. It's only $10, but this is why we do it. When we issue that household $10, it makes them eligible in turn for transitional food assistance. which is the new program I'm talking to you about. And what that does is it gives that household 5 additional months of food benefits at the benefit amount that they were previously getting. So in the example I gave you, let's say that household was getting $450 a month in food benefits. Someone gets a job, household is suddenly ineligible. What happens is we send that household $10, and then that $10 triggers transitional food assistance. And so for 5 more months, that household will receive the same food benefit amount that they were receiving before they became ineligible due to the increase in income. And the idea here is that we want to stave off, if you will, that food cliff. And this is also a program that our TANF families have been able to take advantage of. And so what we've done is we've kind of extended it into our basic food program. So the same goes for TANF families. If a TANF household all of a sudden, gets a job, becomes ineligible for TANF, we're going to make sure that their food benefits stay the same for at least 5 months if they also happen to be on food. Now, during that 5-month period, that household doesn't have to report anything to us. So change of address, phone number, while it's useful to have that, they don't have to report it. A household member moves out, they don't have to report it. Someone, passes away, you don't have to report it. It's basically 5 months of food benefits. But if during that period a change happens that might increase the benefits that they're receiving, they are always welcome to contact us and reapply. And then we can let them know, oh yeah, your food benefit amount would be higher now, or it wouldn't be. And we can just let those 5 months of benefits continue to ride. At any time during that 5-month period, a household can reapply. And so I'm thinking, let's say there's a birth and it was triplets. So all of a sudden there's 3 more people in the household. The household was getting, say, $200 in transitional food assistance, but they're like, wait a second, I bet we could get more if we reapplied. And so at any point in time, a household can reapply. The great thing about this new kind of program is nobody has to ask for it. It's automatic. So, customers don't need to be told, hey, go apply for this program, because it's automatic. It will automatically happen. And so we have income requirements for the food program. And should someone, like I said, get a job, they all of a sudden not eligible for food anymore, they let us know. And if they're over income for food, they'll get an additional 5 months of benefits. And so I want to pause for a second and see if I can answer any questions. I know it's a little wonky, but if you think about it kind of as a step-by-step process, household is on food, there's a child in the household, they all of a sudden become ineligible due to being over income. They end up with $10 extra cash on their EBT card, which admittedly is not a lot, but what it does is it triggers this program for an additional 5 months of food benefits. Does not need to be applied for. There are no reviews. There are no reporting requirements. It's just 5 additional months of benefits in the hopes that, the household gets stabilized. Maybe they're able to save a little money, so they don't have that food cliff that is very common and often hurts families. All of a sudden, you're not getting any food benefits. Yeah, you got a new job, but you had 1 paycheck, you had 2 paychecks, you paid off some old bills, you paid off your traffic tickets so your car doesn't get repoed. All those things that families need to do when they get a job. Hopefully this 5-month cushion helps. So I'm going to pause for a second and see if there's any questions. I tend to talk fast.
Mario, I am not seeing anything in the chat at the moment. I'm not seeing hands raised, but that was really lovely, clear, wonderful benefit that I'm really happy you dropped that link. And I will just take this opportunity to just remind folks that are new to this space. We always post these recordings on YouTube pretty quickly. And then Tim, if you have not read his blogs, he takes great notes, summarizes these meetings in a way. All of the resources are all put into one spot on our blog. So kudos to Tim for a really incredible resource for people that maybe you're like me and you don't take things in auditorily very well and you need to go back and reread. So Mario, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. I think I'm Absolutely. Just going to pass it off to Mary, and we'll keep this DSHS train rolling.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mario. And I'm going to share my screen so that I can show Mary's PowerPoint presentation. We're going to be talking about the mobile CSO program. And I'll be honest, I'm not great at this. So let me know if I could get a verbal confirmation from someone, if you can see the presentation in presentation mode, that would be fantastic. Just give me 1 second.
Okay. I'm going to be your
Okay.
verbal confirmation, Tim.
Thank you very much. Okay.
You are
Is it
screen
showing
sharing. We've got the not presenter mode. We've got sort of the slide and then the preview slide view.
Okay, let me try something different.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Mary O'Brien, pronouns she, her, and I am the Region 2 Mobile Outreach Administrator. And I'm here to present about our newest adventure in DSHS. We have 2 new trucks for the Region 2 area. That's me out there on the truck right there. And that's 2 new trucks for our Region 2 area. Thank you, Tim, for being my driver. You could click that next screen. Mobile CSOs are not the newest thing. We've been around for about 8 years or almost 10 years. But what's new is that we've added 6 more trucks to our fleet. These trucks are a little smaller. We focus now on each of the regions focusing more into these smaller trucks will be able to geographically focus in their areas to deliver services specifically to underserved communities in the areas that their communities that they know are, you have strategic opportunities to work with the tribes, to work with community partners in rural areas or in urban areas with our aging citizens and with our homeless. For example, unfortunately, Kayla Adams isn't able to be here today, but in King County, I'm working very closely with Reach in our homeless community and she comes with us on several events. In Region 2, we have 2 vehicles that we currently have 1 supervisor that has 6 staff. I'm happy to announce that we just hired 2 more staff. So we have a full team. Each truck will have 4 workers, 4 program specialists, and a supervisor. You could click that screen. Tim, thank you. One of the trucks covers the whole area of King County. The second truck covers the rest of Region 2, which is Snohomish, Skagit Island, and Whatcom County. Okay, the next screens. So what do we do on these trucks? So these trucks are fully functioning mobile CSO offices on wheels. We're equipped with all the amenities that you can find in a stationary community service office, with one exception. We do not carry social workers with us. So what that means is that we can do financial eligibility to determine cash assistance. We could do financial reviews. We could issue EBT cards. We could replacement cards. We just can't do the social worker assessments that can be done. The client may have to go in if there is a general assistance, like an AVD case. They will have to either call the contact center or go into the CSO to see their social worker. That's the one exception. And if they're a TANF family, they will have to go into the CSO and see their caseworker to connect to get their IRP. Okay, next screen. We partner, like we said, we partner with many public and private organizations in Washington community. We started out in King County with working with Reach. We've been planning for the last year, working with Reach since January, finding different organizations that we could kind of partner with and think where we could target areas to hit the most clientele. We started off and have been very successful going to the Ballot Food Bank. Is a very successful area of clientele. And we've been going to several areas like in downtown Seattle. We're trying, Kayla and I are working, we have a place in think Lake City that we're going to next week. We're strategically looking at different areas in the community that we can target that helps go to the community versus the community having to come into the CSOs. And we all know that for many of our clients, that is a big barrier, having to coming to the CSO. So next slide, Tim. So the CSOs, like I said, are the mobile CSO team are experienced social program specialists. They do all the scheduling of the events, and they collaborate with the community partners. It's a very unique team. It's a very tiny team. They schedule these events. They they really build a relationship with the partners out in the community, and there's this unique relationship they're starting to have that's something outside that they can't do in a CSO. They really, they get out to these out in the field, and these workers really feel like they're building these strong relationships, and they have these opportunities like Mario just had to explain the program. These workers have opportunities to work with local staff at the programs to answer questions, and they feel more empowered to be able to help clients. So that it's twofold. We're not only there for the clients, but we're there for staff, for them to ask questions to help their clients when we're not there. So although there's only 4 staff, we are able to do many times same-day applications. Sometimes we're able to give the client that very same day their benefits. They walk away from the truck with their EBT cards and their benefits on their cards that day. Next slide, Tip. We also are responsible for any disaster recovery. So far, knock on wood, we have not had any disaster recovery since we've had our new trucks. We received our new trucks back in May of 2023. So we haven't had any disaster recovery. In the last few years, since we've had our bigger trucks, we've been known to have disaster recovery for the Oso mudslide. We were up at the Sumas flooding about a year ago. So those kind of things we do to get deployed, and any events that we may have had scheduled, those get delayed, those get canceled while we deploy to those communities and help out. But that is the one caveat that we tell all community partners, that if something like that happens, that takes precedent. Next slide. Here's just a few sites that we've been going to since, just named a few of the sites in King County since we're presenting to King County. These are the areas that we've hit multiple times. We do a lot of business with the King County library systems, with the food banks. We've been to the Riverton Tukwila encampment several times. International districts, lots of different places, and lots of different volumes of work in terms of flow of clients. So I can't say that any of them have been lacking any customer base. So that's good for us. And my staff are very happy about that because they like to be busy. Next slide. So bigger question is, you're saying, how do I get to know, how do we access this? So here we are on the public SharePoint site. So DSHS has a public facing site, Mobile Community Service Office. This is what it looks like. And you would be able to go to this site, click on the Region 2 calendar. There's right there in the middle, and you could see, if you're in Region 3, you see where Region 3 is. That's the Tacoma and that part of the state, but you just click on Region 2, go to the next slide, please, Tim. And then this would come up, a calendar. And this is what our calendar looks like for January, and it would show you where we are. So next slide, well, this is where we are tomorrow in Renton. This is what would come up if you wanted to click on a slide that said Renton. This will tell you where we are, what we're located, and what time. Okay, next slide. You're going to say, how do I ask for an event? This is on that same page. If you slid down on that page that said Region 2, it would say request an event. You just click on Region 2 Outreach Team, and it will take you to an email. Very soon, it will take you what we're going to use oh God, I'm losing the word. Not a SharePoint site, but that we're coming up with another template referral system that will be online, and we're going to be putting that out in the next 2 months. But right now it will just be an email to me and a few other team members that you put in your request. We just ask partners to put in as much information as you want, date of request, the type of request it is, and it comes to me and my team, and we try to figure out if we're available, if my staff is, if it makes sense for us to go. And there really are no limits on the business hours, other than we haven't really done any Sunday events, but we do events outside the regular business hours. We do Saturday events. We do evening events. And next slide. And that's how you reach me. If you want to give me a call, you could do that. You could send an email, but it's pretty easy. Once people find out how to reach me, they're calling, they're emailing, and they're scheduling. Available. That's it.
Thank you, Mary. This is so wonderful. I have been so excited to bring you all to this space and share this information. I was able to see and get a little mini tour of the van at the Burien Library Resource Fair, and it was fantastic. You are getting lots of just praise in the chats just around, this is a really wonderful resource. And, folks are Seattle Public Library, Laura is just hey, we can do this. We do have a couple questions. What do you do when servicing people who do not speak English? What are the areas for the 6 new vans in addition to the areas you've been serving?
So each region has 2 additional vans. So Region 1, which is the whole west side of the state, has 2 new vans. One they have in Spokane and one they have down in Kennewick. In the Region 3, which is the Tacoma and the whole east side from Port Angeles down to Vancouver, they have one of theirs is in Olympia and one is in Tacoma. They cover a big area. And of course, mine is in Seattle, and my north truck is parked up in Arlington. How do I deal with LEP? I have one Spanish speaking staff on my King County truck. All my staff are equipped with headsets, and we use the language line when we're on the truck. And we do that a lot because it's not the greatest situation because we're in very close proximity, but it works.
Wonderful. Yeah, language lines are amazing and help out in that real time. They usually have, in my experience, have access to a lot of different languages. Are there any languages that are not available? I think that's the easier way to go on this question.
I don't think we've found that yet. I don't think we've found that quite yet.
Great. I'm just, we're seeing,
the other thing I failed to, it is handicapped accessible. I'm sure you saw that, Jody. It has a handicap lift. So if, we have that available, I think we've had to use that once or twice so far. It has an awning. I think you could see that on the front picture of the first page of the slide. There has an awning so clients can stand outside. We have 2 stand outside windows and 2 sit down windows. So it's not a lot of space. So it's very cozy. But it's semi-private, I guess.
Yeah, and it was welcoming. It was a really lovely space. It was wonderful. We have another question from Allison in the chat. How does the DSHS team think about balancing the need for making the most of mobility to reach people who wouldn't otherwise be able to get to a fixed CSO site against the need for kind of consistency in terms of access?
Well, that falls on me. I look to that's why I've kind of I split the trucks up for King County I'm really trying to saturate King County. One of the problems that we have is finding a location that we can park. I definitely need a location that we can park on a flat surface, and a safe area that my staff can access, can get in and out of the, easily get out if there was a problem. I've made a commitment to my staff. We've made a commitment that they will not go into any homeless encampments. We can go outside the encampments, but we will not go inside encampments. So what that means is that, we'll go with other partners on the outside parameters, but we won't, if it starts to be that we feel it's unsafe for the staff, we have to be able to leave the area. And some, for their safety, that's paramount to that, for me, to make sure that they feel safe and they can leave. But what we're finding in downtown Seattle is finding places we can park that, sometimes even just on the streets, they're not flat. And we need a flat surface the way the truck runs. We've got to have the truck on a flat surface. I mean, the Ballard Food Bank has been great right now because they block off the front of the food bank for us. We're trying to work with Seattle Indian Health Board to see if we can, it's building these partnerships up so that we can borrow their space in their parking lot. Their customers are, of course, can access that. So it's all about those partnerships of, can we park here so that our shared customers can use this area. So
Yeah.
that's how I'm trying to balance it, Allison, and spreading it out.
Many factors. I appreciate that. And I'll just reiterate, Laura from Seattle Public Libraries and David, who's associated with Lehigh, interest there. So we've put that link into the chat for you all, how to reach out if you're interested in having the van come to your site. And you just heard a really lovely summary of some of the requirements that are needed to think through which of those locations might be a good fit. I am not seeing
it looks like I might have missed David's question about David. I have not been contacted by anybody from Tiny Home Villages. I don't have a contact there.
We will share Mary's contact information in our follow-ups, though. So if anybody wants to reach out to Mary specifically to request, to ask questions, and also to request a presence at a specific site, we'll have that request email as well.
Yeah, sure. I'm open to that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary. We really appreciate your time.
Right.
I think just reiterating that this is a fantastic resource for clients as well as providers on behalf of clients or community members who access DSHS resources. This is so valuable. Yeah. So let's pivot to some updates that we have going on in the coalition. As we have referenced, it's been a very busy January for us. And as most of us know, it is the start of the legislative session. So in line with that, I'd like to pass it over to my colleague, Hallie, to talk about some of our legislative priorities and opportunities for you to share your advocacy. Take it away.
Thanks, Tim. I'll just preface this by, I feel like we've had a lot of information and I'm going to give you even more. So if you're feeling like at brain capacity, you can check out our blog. I've written a blog post that summarizes most of the legislative stuff that we're tracking. It has links. So don't feel like you have to trap all of this in your brain right now if you're feeling maxed out. But with that said, we are indeed in week 2 of the legislative session. It is a short session, which means that things are moving really fast. And we are keeping a close eye on all the good bills and bad bills that are making their way through the legislature. We sent out an action alert by email this morning, and we'll also share some opportunities to take action in this meeting in just a couple moments. So the only other thing that I want to say about it being a short session is sometimes big policy gets made in short sessions and sometimes it doesn't. I think either way, it's really important to speak up on policies as they, make their way through the legislature, even if they don't make it all the way to a law that year. Oftentimes, really important policies take many years of discussion and moving their way through the legislature to make their way into a law. So it is still really, really important to take action so legislators know what's important to you and what's important to the folks that you serve. So with that, if I can have one of my colleagues drop the link to our blog, if we haven't already, that would be great. Thank you.
I just did that. Yep.
Thank you very much. So I want to start off with one opportunity to join us for a very exciting event. We've got the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, which is a close partner of ours during the legislative session, has a Homelessness and Housing Advocacy Day coming up on January 30th. We are going. And so if you would like to join us there, it's a full day of advocacy in Olympia. The good staff at the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance will lead us through everything we need to know to engage in advocacy during that day in the legislative session. So if you have never gone to Olympia before, if you've never done state advocacy before, or if you're an expert and you've done it 100 times, this is for you. Registration closes on the priority registration deadline is on the 25th. And if you need a ride, the coalition is organizing the Advocacy Express, which is a bus that we have organized pre-pandemic, and we're bringing it back. And so if you need a ride, spots are going quickly. Contact me or Tim if you want to join us on the Advocacy Express, or if you have folks that you serve who want to join us. We only have a handful of spots left, and we're prioritizing folks who have never been before, have lived experience of homelessness, or otherwise couldn't get there and need a ride.
Hallie, may I just offer one point of clarification? We have learned over the years that we need to remind people registering for Housing and Homelessness Advocacy Day is a necessary separate part of the process. So the link to register for what's called HAD is through the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, and I just put that in the chat. It is a sliding scale, so you can pick whatever option of payment, including zero, makes sense for you. Registering to ride with the coalition on our Advocacy Express bus is a separate process. You still need to register for the lobby day. And the reason is that you're going to get the opportunity to meet with your elected representatives in Olympia. And that's going to be based on your home address. And for folks who don't have a traditional home address or living outside or in a shelter, we can help you figure out how you register. But the assignment, if you will, the opportunity to meet with your state senator, your 2 state representatives, is going to be part of the registration process. And the Housing Alliance does a great job of organizing all hundreds and hundreds of people once we get to Olympia into district level groups. If any of that doesn't make sense, feel free to email Tim or Hallie. We want a full bus. And so don't let the fact that we are getting close to capacity stop you. The reason the coalition runs the Advocacy Express bus and we are super excited to do this again for the first time since 2020 in person, is because it gives you the chance, all of us, the chance to be in solidarity with each other and to really feel and see what collective action looks like. And we will support you in the process. As Hallie said, if you've never done it before, we want to help you have that experience. And if you are a seasoned veteran of Advocacy Day, either this one or a different group's Advocacy Day, please come and help share your knowledge with others. This is a really important way for us to show lawmakers while they're making decisions what hundreds of people who care about housing and homelessness have to say. So that's my little pitch.
Thanks, Allison. So please do join us on the 30th. And again, contact me or Tim if you're interested in joining the Advocacy Express. Before we do sort of a summary, I guess, of the bills that we're watching, there are two really important bills that have hearings today. And so I'm going to invite all of you to join us in doing what's called signing in pro right now, real time, during this meeting, because the deadline is real soon. And the first bill I'm going to invite you to sign in pro on is called, and I'll explain the bill and then I'll explain what it means to sign in pro and how it works. So the bill is called Senate Bill 5770. What it would do is it would allow King County to raise property taxes by up to 3% each year. Why do we care about property taxes? We're the Coalition on Homelessness. Property taxes are the way that King County funds much of its homelessness and human services, much of its public health services. And they've had this really, really restrictive limit that was from a Tim Eyman initiative from 2001 that was then overturned by the courts, but the legislature kept it anyway, where they're not allowed to raise property taxes more than 1% every year. They've sort of been able to bump along and you know, flex things until now. And in 2025, you know, this is really at the point where it's going to be a big problem for health and human services. You know, King County is looking at potentially having to close most, if not all, of its public health clinics next year if this doesn't change. So it's weird that we're talking about a property tax thing here, but it is so relevant to health and human services. So if you could click that link right now that Tim shared in the chat, I will join you there and share my screen in a moment and show you what it looks like to sign in pro. Okay, so when you click that link, it will take you to this page, committee sign in. The bill that we're talking about is Senate Bill 5770. And what does it mean to sign in pro? When you sign in pro, you are adding your name to a public list of people who support this bill. You don't have to write anything. You don't have to say anything. You just need to virtually raise your hand and say, you know, I, Hallie Willis, support this bill. So what you do is you scroll down under position, select pro, fill in your first name, last name, email, and it's important to use your personal email address unless you are like officially representing your organization. So for most of us, that'll be our personal email addresses. And again, unless you are officially representing your organization, just leave that blank. You don't have to fill in your address if you don't want to. You can just put your city, state, zip code, phone number, verify that you're not a robot, and submit your registration. It takes like 1 minute. I talked to someone in a meeting the other day who was like, once I did this the first time, I was like so excited, and I'm just going to do it every time. It's so easy. So whenever you get the opportunity to sign in pro, just know that it literally takes 1 minute, and you can autofill all your stuff and just do it really fast. So we're going to do that for 5770. Thank you very much. And I'll also invite you to sign in pro for another important bill that has a hearing today. And that one is called House Bill 2276. And this one would allow for greater taxes to be collected on the sale of really valuable property. So when you sell a home that's worth more than $3 million, which is not most of us that are selling homes more than $3 million, additional taxes can be collected from that sale of really high value property, and those taxes will be put in the housing trust fund to build affordable housing. Another cool thing that this bill does is it also lowers those taxes of the sales of less valuable property. So it's not sort of blanket, it's really focused on the sales of really high value property. And again, it would generate more revenue for the Housing Trust Fund, more revenue for affordable housing. So I'll also invite you to sign in pro for that. Both of those have hearings today. So today is our last chance to make our voices heard for this step in the process. And I'll also remind folks that this is a short session, things move really fast, and we will often invite you to take action multiple times as bills make their way through the legislature. They're making their way through different bodies of people, different committees, different legislators are seeing these things for the first time. And so it's really important to take action multiple times as that bill travels through these different groups of people. So if you see us inviting you to take action again and you're like, I've already done that, please just check, make sure that it's in a different place, and take action again. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us and taking action. I will just do a very brief summary of some of the other sort of highlights of bills that we're watching right now that are in the legislature. And also, you can always check in on our blog. I'm keeping that regularly updated of the list of bills that we're watching and brief summaries of all of them, and opportunities to take action when it comes up. So there's some really exciting bills on rent stabilization called House Bill 2114 and Senate Bill 5961. Those would limit rent increases to 5%, which would make a really big difference for folks who, if a rent increase would kick them into homelessness. This could make a really, really huge difference. And protecting tenants is one of our sort of top legislative priorities this year. Another bill has to do with TANF benefits. So as you might know, TANF has a lifetime limit of the amount of time that you can receive TANF benefits. And once you exceed that limit, that's it, you're done. It doesn't matter if you need it again, you can't get it. So there's a bill that would create an exemption to that and would allow people to stay on TANF benefits if losing their benefits would cause them financial hardship. And that one is called House Bill 2007. And the only other bill I'll highlight right now is just there's a really exciting voting rights bill called House Bill 2030 that would restore voting rights to people who are incarcerated. While they are incarcerated, with the one exception of people who are incarcerated for a crime that would be punishable by death. So this would really broaden voting rights to folks who are currently incarcerated. It's a really important bill that's being led by our friends at Civil Survival. I'll also share, and if one of my colleagues could drop in the chat, Civil Survival's Advocacy Day is coming up on the 24th. So they are going down to Olympia to advocate for all things, voting rights and laws that would benefit people who have been incarcerated or who are incarcerated. That is a very exciting opportunity to engage in advocacy with them. And as far as the budget goes, there's sort of two halves of the legislature. There's sort of the bills that we talk about a lot. There's also the budget. And one thing that we're really keeping our eye on in the budget is making sure that there's funding going into the Housing Trust Fund to build affordable housing. So that's one thing that we're watching very closely. So that is all I'll say on the legislature. I know that's a lot of information. And please do, if you haven't already, sign up for our emails. We will send emails during the legislative session to invite you to take action. And oftentimes it's a really quick turnaround. So I'll invite you to join us in taking action in that way as well. Thank you. And I think I will pass it off to Tim.
Ah, awesome. And I just have some super brief updates about some programming work that we're doing at the coalition as well. You know, there's our advocacy side, and then there's also our provider and community engagement side. We have a great training coming up in 1 week for any provider who or community member potentially who is accessing SSI or SSDI, knowing that it is likely that a person's application is going to get denied the first time, knowing that it is potentially going to take years, and there are so many pitfalls, and people with disabilities potentially really need that income. This is a special training to walk you through all of that with our partners over at Benefits Law Center. So this is a great resource if you know anybody who could benefit from some feedback or some directly answered questions to your concerns around accessing Social Security disability benefit. Please join us at that training if that interests you. Also, just a quick reminder, we are doing year-round voter registration work. We think it's really important for everyone to be able to share their voice at any time through their vote. So we are going to do voter engagement and registration events at a couple different event spaces in South King County. We're going to be on at Recovery Cafe's Resource Fair. It's a lovely outdoor resource fair they have at Soto on the 19th. That's tomorrow. And then next Thursday, we're going to be at the Auburn Community Court Resource Fair down in South King County. If you have any questions or about voter registration work or want us to visit your site, please give me an email. That's tim@homelessinfo.org. And I know we have a couple of last minute community updates. So I want to pass it over to Allison to finish us off. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Tim. Okay, thanks for hanging in there with us, everyone. I want to share some very important information with you that is developing breaking news, I guess. Our friends at Evergreen Treatment Services, sometimes known as ETS, have sadly experienced a disastrous flood at their Seattle offices. And what that means is that their building is completely inoperable. 80 staff and 1,100 patients who receive services and get medication at the Seattle office are affected. And this happened over the Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. So literally people were standing in lines outside in the freezing cold waiting to get their medication. Obviously a terrible situation and something that's going to take rapid and long-term response. So I want to just let everybody know that that is happening, first of all, in case you hear about it, know people who are affected or are affected yourself, in which case I'm sure you know about it. ETS's short-term response has been to reroute their patients to the Renton Clinic, which is already a busy site. They have planned to set up temporary operations somewhere nearby and perhaps to double down on their mobile services. And they really are going to need everyone's help, first of all, to get the word out about where their temporary services will be located so that people don't give up and stop getting care that they need, and also so that we can help them rebuild. So I don't have more details than that, but I wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of it. And we will, of course, share more information from ETS as it becomes available. I think with that, if there are other community announcements, service providers, or advocates who are here with us in the last couple of minutes, if you'd like to share, I think our practice is usually to stop the recording so that people who might not want to be recorded can feel free to come off mute. So with that, we'll close the recorded part of our January 2024 general membership meeting.